What's up, everybody? This is Battlefield 97 here, giving you another installment of the series of videos that I've done over the past year, and that is the thoughts and feels of movies. Basically, I go into a movie theater and talk about the latest movie that has hit in theaters and give my thoughts, impressions, or review, sort of in that kind of realm. And my review slash impressions will be on the new Godzilla film that has hit Japan, directed by Hideaki Anno and another director that he has worked on other monster movies. And that, of course, is Shin Godzilla, or translated to Godzilla Resurgence. I watched it in the Village East Cinema in New York City. Definitely a very good theater to watch in theatrical runs. Last time I went into that theater was for Resurrection of F, the Dragon Ball Z movie, which I may or may not have done a Thoughts of Feels Movies video on this channel. So yeah, maybe you can look for that or put it in the description below. But anyhow, because we're talking about Godzilla, so I want to talk about the negatives first, because I do have a lot of positive things to say about this 2016 installment, or the third reboot that Toho has done for the Godzilla franchise as a whole. So the negatives out of the way, I can definitely say that in first impressions, I thought the monster that attacks Japan was just another monster. It wasn't Godzilla himself, but it turns out the weird CGI-looking ballsack Shin monster was actually the first stage of evolution of Godzilla himself. Throughout the movie, Godzilla goes through evolutionary stages, or at least the fall forms, like he was a fucking Pokemon. And his third or fourth final form is how he's shown in the promotional posters and the trailers themselves, who, even though he still has this weird looking eyes to him, not the fish eyes from the beginning of the movie itself, but throughout the end of the movie, he then becomes scary. He becomes a force of nature that not even the military of Japan, or even the U.S. Air troops can stop him. So, a negative out of the way, the CG at times could be off like any other Japanese movie. Even with the budget to go out of, sometimes the CGI can look really ridiculously fake. But for the most part, most of the CGI is pretty good. Establishedly good, especially in the destruction that Godzilla does in the middle of the movie itself, which I'm not going to say how it is, but once you see it in a big screen with a good sound system in the theater that I was in, you're like, holy shit. Like, I muttered that so many times, like, holy shit. Holy shit, like, damn, the destruction was there. And it definitely impressed me more than the 2014 Warner Brothers Godzilla movie that came out, which I watched on HBO. And it was alright, if you want my impressions on the 2014 Godzilla movie. So let's get it out of the way for the negatives. Godzilla's first form looked weird, with the CGI at times being, like, off. The third could be, sometimes there'd be a little bit more talkative with the cast itself, and a lot of characters just thrown at you, like, all the time, and you're just thinking to yourself, yeah, it's just another Japanese man. He's like the director of communications, he's the director of the internet and fairs or whatever. It's like you don't even give a shit about their names except for like three characters. Higuchi, if I pronounce it right, the daughter of one of the secretaries from the U.S. president, and the prime minister, who instantly... Nah, I don't want to spoil that part. Two prime ministers, and those are the ones that you remember the most, with some of the scientists they're trying to find a way to stop Godzilla, either by killing him or stopping him from any stretch of the imagination, which I'm not going to spoil exactly how they do. So, yeah, aside from those negatives, I can definitely say that the entirety of Shin Godzilla, I was entertained for the most part. Even though there were a lot of talkative moments, I still enjoy the political tension that it had out of it, and it mostly is it's kind of like a third attempt of remake of Godzilla, in a way like the 1954 Godzilla film, to even one of the 1984 or 1985 Godzilla movie, which was like the first and second time that Godzilla was rebooted, the original and the second reboot from 1984-85, where it basically took some of the political tensions of the time and basically inserted Godzilla to know how the Japanese would react, or the world would react. And this third attempt of the Godzilla franchise, the reboot, addresses some of the natural disasters or man-made disasters that hit Japan like a few years ago, like the Fukushima disaster plan, to even the earthquake and tsunami that hit Japan in 2011. So it definitely has that evocative feel of what happened to Japan a few years ago, while adding in Godzilla to be like this unstoppable being that the military couldn't even do. And yeah, it definitely, like, once Godzilla's in his third and fourth final form, it's, like, really, really cool as all hell. He destroys everything in his sight. The military of Japan, they're trying everything they can to stop the guy, and even the Americans, the Germans, and the French are involved. And I was quite surprised that there were some American, German, and even French people involved in this movie. So, the movie that I was seeing for Godzilla was a Japanese movie with subtitles. But then when the Americans, the French, and the Germans came along, there was like separate subtitles for the Japanese and separate subtitles for us gaijins to know what the fuck they're talking about. So it felt like this isn't just Japan's problem, it's the world's problem. So the US president, the secretary's daughter is involved out of this whole thing. And there's even a point where the US will have to throw another nuke in Japan to even stop Godzilla. So the tension is high, the tension is real, and once the finale hits, it's like, if you feel so good. And the finale itself, it kind of has this, sequel feel to it. It's like, yeah, maybe they may have another, one of the Godzilla monsters that appear for the second installment of this third reboot for the franchise. So, yeah, I've been muttering as all hell about this whole movie because it's so fucking good as all hell. Aside from the CGI being fake-ish, because, Japanese films can't really have good CG for the most part compared to a Western production. Godzilla's first form, it looks really fucking silly as all hell. It's a bit talkative at times, with some of it being boring, but for the most part, the movie is 10 out of 10. The cast is top-notch. Hideaki Anno and the Shinji, other director, did very good in the direction for this film itself, and definitely was successful in bringing Godzilla in the modern age compared to the 2014 Warner Brothers movie by what's his name, Edward, the guy who's like basically directing the Star Wars spin-off movie Rogue One, which I definitely will have a review of around December, so check out for that to see if he's good or not as a director. So, yeah, Shin Godzilla, if you have not gotten the chance, I highly recommend purchasing the tickets if the tickets are still available where you are in New York, California, or whatnot, just to be able to see this movie, because it really is a very good movie. If you love Godzilla, you're doing yourself a disservice to not buy a ticket and go for it, because I paid $16+ to get a ticket for this movie, and it was well worth the admission itself. And if there were still tickets available for me around the city cinema, Village Cinema, I would definitely go and see the movie again, because it really is fucking good. And definitely, if it does hit on Blu-ray with Funimation and Toho producing or distributing the title, I definitely highly recommend this being in your Blu-ray collection, especially if you are a Godzilla fan, because Godzilla Resurgence, Shin Godzilla, is a great movie, 10 out of 10 if you're a fan of Godzilla. This is Battlefield Joe 97, catch you guys later.